What is going on, everybody? Another episode of Gym Guys Podcast, episode 16. Can't believe it already.
Week 16.
Week 16 on Gym Guys Podcast. You can find us on Gym Guys Pod on Instagram or on YouTube, Gym Guys Podcast. I am with the illustrious host, Eric Schwartz, owner of Poor Power. He always hits a bicep
Fine.
shot being covered by the
camera's on.
background right
Yeah.
now. Supplement extraordinaire, veteran of Animal and many other famous brands. We love having him on the show. We've got Jason Budsock, VP of Product Development for over 2 decades at Animal.
No double bicep. We got a thumbs up. Weird.
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah.
There it is.
Gary's gonna show me up.
I'm getting killed. I'm getting killed. Me, Chris Scotto, Drago 1850 on Instagram. Been selling the brand for decades. Love Animal. Love the whole bodybuilding, fitness, and lifestyle. And we're going to get into our guest in a second, and we're just so honored to have him. I know if you watch our podcast, we start off by saying that, but we truly are honored with each and one of our guests, especially this one. We were so grateful to be able to witness his victory just a few weeks ago. I think it was July 1st. Now officially an IFBB Pro, won the 35 plus heavyweight and the NPC Team Universe on July 1st. I'm so happy. I did a demo event and I drove all the way to Jersey because I had to watch this. I had to see this live, and we're just so proud of his journey. If you know him on Instagram, you see him as the G6, the underscore G6, I think underscore. I know I'm probably messing that up a little bit. Turner. I would say the G stands for grit more than anything, based on you following his journey, what he posts about, hundreds and hundreds of motivational posts that are just awesome, just authentic, from the heart, from experience, just something you can't teach. And that's probably one of the greatest things I love about you, Gary, is those posts. Started with the Animal brand in 2013, pretty much marking your 10-year anniversary right now, right?
Yeah, May crossed 10 years.
Wow.
10 years with a supplement brand, not typical.
Eric and Jason hired me.
We all make mistakes.
What you guys think?
Eric recruited me. Jason finalized the deal.
We all make mistakes.
That's fantastic. And actually worked his way up and got signed on as an athlete.
As an athlete, as an official
2017?
athlete, man. I remember when we had that actual contract. That was pretty cool.
Put me in, coach, right? Jeez. And throughout that whole journey, from start to finish, if you want to call it finish, 17-year journey to become a pro, and 13 years competing for it, which is just, my God, that's just such an unbelievable story right then and there. So when you hear him talk and you watch what he does, pay attention. There's a reason why. He also is known for coaching his son Lucas in wrestling and in football, 8-year-old division, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct.
And that's actually the new fun part that I enjoy with Gary, on how he shares his family and how he shares what he's learned through his journey and applies it to his family and his son. Super important and a lost art these days. So without further ado, I want to welcome Gary G6 Turner to our show. Now an IFBB Pro. I mean, congratulations, Gary, an enormous achievement that we're really proud of and that we want to dig into throughout this podcast. And before we dig into that, we just want to talk about a few current events that have been happening, and I'm going to tip it off to Jay and Eric to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the industry that we're all talking about.
Yeah. So go, Jay.
I was gonna say we've had some unfortunate news in the industry. Joe Aesthetics was passed away recently. That's super sad news. Big influential guy, super positive, helps so many people in our industry. So that was very unfortunate. I know it happened previously, 2 weeks ago, but still for us, this is news to our show. And then also that crazy accident that we all saw on TikTok and social media was the guy squatting. I don't have his name, Eric. Maybe you have his name because I know you're
Um,
going to mention him, but
Yeah, of course, I'm forgetting it right now when I'm on the spot. But what a terrible, terrible
terrible.
thing that could have easily been avoided. It's really like when you watch. I don't know if you guys watched the video, but you watch the video and like, did that really happen that quick? The guy, just real quick for those that don't know, is a kid who's squatting. And the spotter was terrible, and that's one of the reasons why I believe that he died. But he couldn't get up from the squat. He started to lean forward. The bar rolled forward over his neck and snapped his neck, just like boom, and he was dead. The way the guy spotted him was terrible. I don't want to dunk on the spotter. I'm sure he feels terrible, but the guy was spotting him, trying to hold the bar up top. You really got to know what you're doing when you're spotting somebody on a squat. Just a terrible tragedy that could have been avoided and shouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
Thoughts and prayers to
ju-
both families.
Did you see it, Gary?
Yeah, I saw it. And just to jump in with that, obviously, like I said, don't dunk on the spotter. It was a huge mistake. But the one thing that with that was definitely not when I say like a freak accident, like he blew out his quad on a set that he does 10 reps routinely with, and then something fell on his neck, spotter wasn't ready. That was obviously a 1 rep max squat, which means you pretty much, when you're going for that, you need the whole gym there. If it's a powerlifting 1 rep squat, meaning you need side spotters, you need the what are those, the ropes that are set up, that the
yeah,
catch,
the
the
safeties,
safeties like that. And you need, and especially the guy behind you has got to be the most experienced guy. He's got to be around your chest. I know this guy probably got 1,000 messages saying you should have been squatting with him and assisting. I know Dave Palumbo commented on it as well. So there was negligence there. It wasn't just like this guy got injured, his knee blew out, and then everything went forward. You can't expect the guy to catch the weight. And, I don't know if you guys ever seen it, but that was a real person who died. That wasn't like in the movies, and it's such an eerie feeling, right? You see the moment
Yeah.
when it leaves him, his arms went
Yeah,
stiff,
very
Uh,
uncomfortable.
Mhm.
and it's I mean, I've at least ended up on like websites where like you've seen like real death, and it's not. It's an odd feeling when you see it compared to like watching a movie or something like that where it's fake. So, yeah, that's it was just unfortunate. And there's the scary part about our sport, powerlifting, all that, is sometimes you only get one chance. There's no warning. And it's not like, oh, you get hurt. Hey, don't do that again. And, and then here you go. So.
So,
Yep. It's just a terrible thing. Shout out to his family, whatever. I mean, just not cool. On the flip side, on some more positive notes, we just had the Chicago Pro, Justin Shear, if I'm saying his name right. He won, so he's qualified for the Olympia. And Animal's own John Jewett just qualified for the Olympia, right?
Yep. John,
Right, yeah.
John actually, he went to that show, I think it was 2 weeks ahead of schedule from where he intended to compete in, just because he was ready. And he picked that lineup off. He must have knew also going in, like, I'm on right now. This is a favorable lineup. And he did what he had to do. And I think from what I just read, John is competing either this weekend or next weekend in the open class, because John feels that he is sacrificing look to make the 212. He's weighing 225 right now, and he feels his best. And he thinks that his best look will be like, so I'm not saying he obviously when he goes to the Olympia, he's going to go 212, because that's where he knows, competitively he can bodybuild in. But he wants to see what it looks like if he's allowed the freedom to get a bit bigger.
Interesting. What show is that at, Gary?
I don't know. Maybe Texas.
yeah, Texas Pro.
Is
Yeah.
that in a week or two?
Yeah, it would be the Texas Pro.
He's from Texas, so he doesn't have to go far.
Right. That's probably has a lot to do with it. He could probably drive. I mean, there's going to be heavy hitters there, and he's going to, try his best, but he probably just honestly, like, for curiosity, John, he likes to, see what's what, and, probably just want to see what he's like when he has the freedom. We all watched Derek Lunsford morph into what the current Derek Lunsford was. And, Derek shredded at, like, from what I heard, Derek weighed in like 235 for the Olympia. So the fact that he used to go to 212, I mean, come on, man.
It's nuts.
Before you got on, I said Derek's going to be the next Mr. Olympia.
I think that I agree with that. I think that, I mean, Hottie's great, but I still think that Derek is still on the rise. I think he's going to.
I thought Derek should have won last year. I mean, it could have went either way, but
it was very close. I think that it's going to be the final call out is going to be Derek and Nick Walker. I think that Derek will beat him.
Interesting.
But I just think that Derek is Derek is legitimately huge, like huge. So,
It's
and then he's
unbelievable.
just got the conditioning to back it. I mean, there's
And
very
that
few
shape,
shots.
that shape is amazing.
That front double bicep is out of
Best
this
in the
world.
business. Yeah.
That's picture perfect. So back double bicep. I mean, who was better? Phil Heath, maybe? That was,
The
if
back
you're
double
right there with that,
bicep, the real lat spread are just off the charts.
right. So I think that I think that Derek will be the first 212 and open Mr. Olympia.
Pretty cool.
So
Yeah,
I remember when he turned pro. Sean Ray in the prediction
Yeah.
said, Sean Ray said, he looks good, should do well here. I'm like, this guy is the heavy favorite for the overall. The next week he went to Tampa and won that too, a week after his pro card. I mean, like, should do well here. Like, he's in the mix. He is the mix.
he is the
That's
man.
great.
Uh,
All right. Well, let's turn to a more recent IFBB pro, Gary Turner. Incredible to say those words. It was incredible to see it. I'm glad I was there to witness it. I've been along for a lot of the journey. I mean, obviously, I saw you in the office every day, saw you training every day, traveled with you a bunch of times. It's incredible, man. And I know that was the one moment, July 1st, but there was all that time that went into it before that is really what got you to that moment. And it was just awesome to witness, man, with your family there and Christian going against him in the overall. It was really, really cool, man. I know you've been asked it a million times. How's it feel? Now it's kind of sunk in a little while, was it everything you expected to feel, or was it worse, more, less?
yeah, it was actually probably more than what I expected because of the fashion that it happened. I don't even know if we've talked about this in private before, but it was because it was in New Jersey. It was because everybody was there. It was the reaction that happened. And, Joe Percher actually told me like that when I walked out from back there, when he pulled me aside, he said, this could have happened anywhere else. It could have happened at the USA's, which would have been awesome if I won the class, but it would have been me and Melissa there alone. Lucas wouldn't have been there. My parents wouldn't have been there. Everybody else wouldn't have been there. I mean, everybody would have clapped. I would have got a million text messages, but when I got really emotional, it was when I heard the crowd go crazy because I knew that everyone was on board with me. I knew that it meant something bigger. And I've been around long enough to know, and I see a lot of guys turn pro, that not everyone gets that reaction. And that's because of the journey leading up to it. That's because of the underdogness of this, the Rudy mindset of like, this wasn't supposed to happen, but we kind of just put it into existence of it was happening. So I like the whole journey beforehand flashed before your eyes. I got emotional. I was emotional when right after Christian got announced and I walked off. So I was that made me emotional, that it was just so ironic that I was moved to the middle to go against Christian. And I'm sure if we looked at the scorecards, I don't even know if there's scorecards, but it was probably very close. So that was even more so. But I was emotional then. I was emotional when I got off stage of prejudging. Now I couldn't tell if there was an even number or odd number amount of guys there. I knew I was near the middle, but I couldn't tell if the guy next to me was dead center or if there was even and I was split center. Then
Well,
they came up with,
if I remember, there was six, right? Six guys. So it was hard to tell. Yeah.
I couldn't tell because I wasn't looking down. So
right.
I couldn't tell if I was off to the side, but in the third or second position, or if I was split center. And everybody's like, dude, you won every pose in that class. And then I started looking at pictures and I'm like, I couldn't find, and when people were jumping on me after prejudging, I'm like, that's when I started holy shit, it's going to happen. And I spoke to a couple big name coaches. I spoke to my own coach backstage. I go, dude, you got it. We just need to come back. Right. And so I was very calm, even during, we went back to my Airbnb and we're just hanging out, and it was very calm afternoon. The only thing that worried me is we know that sometimes some kind of funny business happens where you don't know and you think that you're in first place. And then I knew I was so closer than I've ever been. And I'm like, please just don't let something weird happen so I have to keep going. And, so when I got announced, it was more of a relief at that exact moment. Then happiness set in. And then, but the real, like I said, the real thing that made me like emotional was the response when I walked out. I mean, Chris got the video. Thank God when it was a great moment. Chris got the video when I walked out. I was emotional there because again, we've seen people walk out from that curtain a million times. We've been to all those shows, and it's usually just like, "Hey, good job, new IFBB Pro." And it's like, because the guys that win, sometimes you just know that genetically they're going to turn pro. If not, when it's going to be. So the fact that everybody was cheering was an emotional thing.
Yeah, it was great, man. It's the people's
Super.
camp.
Yeah, it's
So-
like, go ahead.
No, I want to go back a little bit, and people know that you've had a long journey and you've put a lot into it. But I want to go back to one of your preps, and I cannot remember the year. I'm sure you'll know it because you have a great memory.
2015.
How do you know what I'm going to
Talking
say?
about the crazy Matt Porter prep.
Yes, it was Matt Porter.
Wow,
May he rest
look
in
at that.
peace. Can you? So, if I recall,
Mhm.
you were doing cardio, 2 or 3 cardio sessions a day,
Three
and a
hit
weight
cardio,
training.
3 hit cardio sessions and a separate weight training session a day.
So you were going to the gym 4 times per
Yes.
day. For how many
Double,
weeks did you
double.
do that?
from 12 weeks out on 50 grams of carbs and no fat.
I remember that prep, and I still think it's crazy, man. And
It is crazy. I don't have to cut you off. It is crazy. I mean, I had this conversation with my coach Dominic on the way for my final pump up Friday before the show. And he goes, "I have no idea why he did that to you. That was completely unnecessary." I explained to him, and what I'm explaining to you guys is that prep. When I signed on with Matt, I knew that he of course would provide the service that I paid for. He would help me the best he can, but I knew that he didn't think much of me because I was coming as a very overweight. I was like 286 pounds. It wasn't a good 286. That's not his style. And I felt that he didn't take me seriously. He didn't really know much about me. And you know me longer than that, where I always just wanted to be taken seriously in bodybuilding. I knew that I had to earn it, to earn respect from everybody, and I wasn't there yet, which in my earlier years led to some like running of the mouth and stuff like that because I was trying to make up for the lack of physique. It was an immaturity mixed with it. And once I got my physique where I wanted to, I dialed that back and I became a bit more inspiration because I was a bit more secure. But with Matt, I wanted to prove to him that I was somebody to take seriously, and I knew that I was just going to have to do everything he said. I'm going to have to prove to him that I'm a hard worker. And that was the prep. Now, my previous preps, I never missed a meal. I never missed training. I thought all bodybuilders did that. I just kind of came up that they were so strict that you had to do all this stuff. But this was the first prep where I focused on the actual hard work behind it. I knew it was crazy. So I would, at the most that I did was 27 minutes of cardio on elliptical. So it was like 45 seconds jog on the elliptical and then 15 seconds all out. I mean, I've broken half of the machines at Retro because ellipticals are not made to sprint on.
Right.
They're supposed to just glide with them.
Right.
So, and I would have to find the ones that weren't making noise and they were smooth. So I would do 27 minutes fasted.
Awesome.
I would go to work at Universal. I would go to lunchtime. I would go back to Retro, which is around the corner, do 27 minutes, back to work. I would train at the work gym after work at like 5:30. And then I would go home, eat and chill till about maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And I'd go back to Retro again and do that last one. He did not believe in fats. So there was no added fats. And then my carbs eventually got to 50 grams. It was hell.
Yeah.
On top of that,
level.
on top of that, Melissa was pregnant at the time with Lucas. 6 weeks out, he was born. My mom delivered cooked flounder to the delivery room and I was eating it. Even crazier, Lucas was born on a Tuesday. How do I know this? Because that was check-in
Leg
day.
day.
That
Oh.
was
I remember the famous
Tuesdays,
Tuesday
yeah.
check-in days.
Tuesday.
Remember how
Those are
Gary
famous
gets so
around the
frustrated
office.
because he didn't get an answer right away?
Yeah.
He didn't
Oh,
get an answer.
I was like that up until now. But I would stare at my phone. I mean, we use WhatsApp now, me and Dominic, but we would wait for the email. But Melissa was in labor. I took the pictures that morning. She went to labor, and Lucas was in labor, and I got the email. It says, have the refeed this weekend on Saturday. And I looked at Melissa while she was in labor and in pain, and I said, good news. You got a refeed this weekend. So that's where I just like didn't give
Oh
a
my
shit.
God, she probably wanted to kill you at that moment.
Oh my God. I only tell it because, and listen, people say, would you do it again? And the answer would be, like if that happened while I was in this prep, no, because I know from experience and being wiser that was not necessary. I was trying to prove to Matt Porter that I would do anything at all costs. And what that prep did was I was made first call out at Junior USA, and I ended up at 9th somehow. I was very pissed off with that. But what that prep did was it kind of put me on the map as like the hard worker. You know, people saw that, like, this guy is crazy. It definitely got Matt's attention with, this guy don't have the best genetics, but he is going to come to do everything. As he used to say, if I told him to eat dog crap, he would. And, you know, that kind of set it up for that. And I guess, and eventually that became like my reputation. And I started to realize that was the marketing that I needed to go with for myself, not you're going to be Mr. Olympia, not you're the best physique that anybody's ever seen. This is what you need to run with. This is what you're strong in, because even the best bodybuilders are probably not like that. So that's what that prep set up for me in terms of it.
Crazy,
So
man.
impressive.
Massive respect. I'd be honest, I don't know if I could do that.
It was a nutty time. I was a younger kid, obviously, but it was like, you know, do I regret doing it? No. Would I ever want to do it again? No. You know, the laundry situation was so crazy when you were going to the gym 4 times. It was so obnoxious, the amount of clothes.
This Melissa, you're a saint.
Yeah, she definitely
Very true.
you know, put up with all that shit.
So Gary and Christian were prepping at the same time and all working in the same office. And Gary and Christian's desks were diagonal. You could see each other. And Gary would always go over and like pose in the office. It was funny. And Christian put up a sign. What did he put? No posing zone?
No
No
posing
posing zone.
No posing zone.
Mhm.
It was funny.
That's just the irony of like when we ended up at the end of it like that. You know, like we had conversations knowing that like this is the end of the road for us. Let's just get this done, because none of us wanted to go to Masters Nationals, which just happened last weekend, I think it was, and none of us wanted to go to Pittsburgh. We were like, just get this shit done now. You know, Christian was at the end of his road too.
I know there's in your mind there's no plan B, but was that like the backup plan? If you
Yeah, yes, but I made it a point, and we could talk about the mentality of that changed this time around. I didn't look at any Airbnbs. I didn't look at any hotels. I didn't look at anything. I knew that was what was gonna, like, when people said was Universe the final show, I said no, but this was the final prep, meaning I would have continued for the shows that I had allotted, and if I didn't get it, then that was it. But what I purposely didn't start like looking at stuff like that. So, and what I did was this time around, because I've been studying a lot of these wrestlers, the, you know, Olympic level wrestlers, NCAA wrestlers, high school wrestlers, who are arguably under more pressure, because at high levels, I mean, it's a combat sport. You have another guy that's ready to rip your head off, and you have to come in there and perfectly confident that you're going to be able to do it. A little bit different than bodybuilding. So I started to study them. I mean, these guys, they truly believed that they were going to win. When they said, I will win the NCAA tournament, I will win, you know, the Olympics. They don't use words like, I hope to win, or how do I say, like, yeah, like I hope to win, or we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try my best, because I feel that, and I've done this in the past for the longest time. Say things that way, so you have 1 foot out of the pool and 1 foot in the pool, and it gives you a way out, so you don't embarrass yourself on social media because you're making absolutes. And you know what? That doesn't save you from anything, because nobody should be making fun of anybody. But the bottom line is that if you get your teeth kicked in, then and just take the beating and then just go and come back. The point is that these guys try to say like, well, I didn't say that I was gonna win, and it makes you look like a cop-out. No, you got to be all in, and it might not go your way, but you got to be all in. So I think that it's like a fake humility type thing. I think that's where like they're trying to be humble, but it's screwing them up. I'm not saying you be an arrogant prick, but you got to be fully confident. And if it doesn't, then you change course at that moment where you didn't win, and then go back, but you got to stay confident. So I really changed my vocabulary like leading up to it. And I started writing it down on I have a dry erase board calendar. And I wrote every day got up, wrote the date. I didn't change the date. I just wrote a new date. And I wrote, I will win universe. Even when I wasn't home, because I went to my parents' house, because Lucas had a wrestling camp. It was close to my parents' house. I wrote it in my phone in the notes section because I didn't have the dry erase board. So I wrote, I will win universe, whatever date, 6/29. And I started to change my vocabulary when I spoke about it. When I win my pro card, I will win this pro card this weekend. I told my mom, I said, we're going to Teaneck and I'm going to collect my pro card there. So it was no like, well, hey mom, we'll just see how things go. You know, I look real good, so we'll see how it goes. I said, no, I'm going to win. She goes, she looked at me, she goes, I think it's different this time. So
That's awesome.
you know,
That's awesome. You spoke it into existence, Gary.
there's a lot of like, you know, I thought you used to think that was foolish, but I said, what the hell do I have to lose at this point? Just freaking come in this with guns blazing, you know, and then now it worked on the first time, but
I think there's a lot to it, man.
There's
I think
a
you're
lot
manifesting.
to it. There's a lot to it, and I just did it this last week, and not to switch subjects, but Lucas wrestled in a national duel. He was asked to be on a national wrestling duel team in a 7U division in Atlantic City. There's 2-day event. He had 6 matches. He was undefeated, and in the 3rd match of the first day, he wrestled the Pennsylvania state champ. They pinned him in the second. He had wrestled a good match, but he made a mistake, and they pinned him. He was a little upset about it. Came back the next day, won 2 quick ones that he should have won those, and then. But the way that it went is that team also made it to the finals as well as we did. So Lucas knew he was going to have to wrestle that kid again. And I could see he goes, I don't want to wrestle him. I pulled him aside. I said, tell me right now that you're the best wrestler in this tournament. And I said, tell me that you're a beast. And I started getting him hyped up, and he goes, I'm going to murder everyone. And that's what he's been saying. And I've been running with it. He says, oh,
I know the posts.
And he was just like, I'm going to murder. He goes, and we told him a few things that this person's going to do. They're going to roll this way. You're going to counteract it with your leg going over here. And he did he came out. It was 8-0 before the second period. And then he pinned them. And then we needed that win to win the whole thing. And he did. So he came through, and it was just, but it was just very much like, I didn't even go in with, hey, Lucas, try your best. I just kind of like amplified him. I just kind of said, you're the best wrestler in this freaking tournament. Why? Like, I think that people are afraid to put that in there because maybe they think that there's a level of cockiness that might come. Then maybe you get complacent, and maybe you have to know your athlete.
That could happen too.
Maybe
Could be overconfident.
Know your athlete in there, and I know that if you send a timid Lucas that's not thinking,
It's not good.
he's not good. If I have him come out like a wild man, like I'm the man, he's gonna do better. So that's what I needed to do in that moment, and it worked. So it's like I'm speaking it, you know. Yeah,
that happens in powerlifting, Jay. I don't know if it's happened to you, but there's been some heavy sets where if I have a slight bit of doubt in my mind,
you can't.
You lose it. You don't get it. So you have to be. There's got to be some level of aggression to go to a high level.
Well, that's why I never was into powerlifting like that, because I've always known that you go for that 1 rep max, especially in the meet, you cannot hesitate even 1%. The scary part is when you go for it, and when you do commit, you could injure yourself. So you're walking a tightrope of, I don't want to tear my bicep deadlifting 700 pounds.
That can't even be on your mind.
Right. But if you hesitate, that bar's going to be glued to the floor. So which one do you want? That's why I've always, when people are like, you're going to do a powerlifting meet, I'm like, dude, those guys are a different level of craziness. They think I'm crazy because I've gone 60 weeks without eating anything.
Yeah.
You know, they don't like to do that, but I think that they're crazy because they're, you know, Brandon Lilly blows out both quads, and then before you know it, 8 months later, he's squatting again. That's a level of craziness to be able to do and not say, fuck this, man, I'm afraid, you know, and not be afraid. You're going to be crazy. So
has Lucas seen Vision Quest yet?
Yeah, part of it. He always asks, why do those guys singlets look at him? Because it was the 1980s. Singlets are. He goes. Remember how the coach was wearing the singlet at practice? He goes, why is the coach wearing the singlet? Obviously, that doesn't happen. The wrestlers don't even wear the singlets at practice.
If you guys listening, if you haven't seen Vision Quest, watch it. It's a great movie. It's cheesy in some parts, but that's what makes it great.
You know, those 80s movies, man. They had those soundtracks.
The soundtrack is fantastic. Madonna, such a great soundtrack, man.
Yeah, Journey too, and
Journey.
I always joke, I always say, you think you can make the weight? And he goes, I hope so. He goes, I hope so too. Shoot, what? As he's walking up with that pole on his back.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is Lucas into professional wrestling? Does he watch WWE, AEW?
He's not like on Monday or like he like comes and flies over for it. He knows them. He's like, he was at one point, he's really into, honestly, the old school. He loves Macho Man.
Wow.
Hogan he likes. He always asks me, is this wrestler still alive? And I say no. He goes, what happened? I
Yeah,
said,
it's unfortunate.
heart attack. He goes, why do all these wrestlers have heart attacks? I said, that's a conversation that we'll have when we're older. I said, because he knows that Macho Man had a heart attack when he was driving his Jeep.
Yeah.
I was like, well, the car crash didn't kill him. He was dead before that. But he was like all little kids. He loved John Cena. So, you know, I think
I just
I
went to
posted-
AEW this past Saturday. I was there
Yeah.
live. They had it at Prudential. It was interesting. I haven't been to live wrestling in a long time.
I've never been to a live professional wrestling event.
They put
I
on a
know
good show.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was great.
Yeah.
Remember the
Shoot,
ECW? Remember
live all the time.
ECW?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
at one in Staten Island. It was
Was it
great. It
nuts?
was mayhem.
Just those fans were different.
Yes, like the
They were
crowd getting into
psychos.
it with the wrestlers. Yeah, it was crazy.
They took that seriously, way more serious than WWE fans, WWF fans did. But he always walks around and does the Macho Man. Ooh, yeah, my wife hates it. And my wife hates
Love it.
Macho Man and Ric Flair. She thinks they're the most
Love
obnoxious. So if I really want to like annoy her, I put the
They're
cream of the
obnoxious
crop.
now.
The cream of the crop promo will drive her insane.
You got to
This
watch
poor
old
woman.
episodes of Saturday Night's Main Event. That'll get her
Yeah.
excited.
This
Yeah,
poor
it's-
woman.
He's not really into that, but he's the kind of kid that whatever he gets into, he obsesses over. So he is into like
He's your son.
he is into the Olympic wrestling, NCAAs, even the high school or like the youth. Like he knows like the national level youth kids, and because he's been in every room, like they know him too. Like they came up to him at that Atlantic City, they shook his hand. They know he's a little kid, and he'll talk to him. Just he stands out with his hair and everything like that. He's a wild man, but
Hurricane Lucas, I nicknamed him. Yeah, I know.
he's just the kind of kid where like the difference that I see amongst him and the other kids, not even so much like the actual wrestling, like he memorizes like who's a 3-time NCAA champ, what year it was, what was the score. Like, you know, some of those kids are just like, they're into like whether it be like they know how many Super Bowls Tom Brady has and how many completions he had. And
Gary, that's you, man. You remember in the office, you would just name it like a random Met from like Last
It's
Things Village,
amazing.
like
Yeah.
a guy that nobody else
Crazy,
would know. But
crazy memory.
yeah, Carlos Baerga or something.
yeah.
But yeah, he has that and he's into it. So like when we went, Eric, I went to the Prudential Center and I emailed the security beforehand or the about I have a very serious peanut allergy. I must bring my own food or I could go into anaphylactic shock. So they said, bring this email that clears you to security. And they gave me the bracelet. So
Yeah.
now I had my food in the
That's
Prudential
funny.
Center and I'm eating cod 4 rows back in the wrestling.
Awesome.
But Lucas is there having a conversation with the random man behind him about the scoring on the mat. He knew all the guys. He ran down there. At one point, I
Wow.
didn't know where in the stadium he was because he was down at the tunnel getting the autographs from all the wrestlers. So that's like kind of like when I knew that he was that into it. How many little kids do you bring and they get bored halfway through?
Yeah, yeah.
Or like it's like he was like he like idolizes these guys. And I think that that's the difference, on the way up with like, the actual wrestling will come, but like the passion for knowing the history. We talked about this all the time in the office. Some of these newcomers to bodybuilding, they don't know, that Lee Haney was 8 times. If you said Lee Haney or Dorian Yates, they'd be like, who? And then you probably want to punch them. But it's like, they didn't take the time to learn the history. And I think that that is a missing thing. So when I see that he takes the time to learn these wrestlers, I'm like, great. That's
When
I
see
think it's
people,
important.
When I see people practice in the gym posing, and I know you went off on tripods and all that, we had a lot of fun with that. But when I see them doing it in the right spot, whether it's the dedicated pose room or whatnot, and they're trying to do these poses, if I feel they're approachable, if I feel they're open-minded, or I've gotten to know them from just saying hello to them at the gym, it'll just be like, hey, have you ever watched Lila Brada? Or have you ever watched Francis Benfada? Have you ever watched Ed Corney, pose? And I'm like, do yourself a favor, just search it on YouTube, and it's just gonna completely change the way you can go about things. And you're right, they don't know any of those people, unfortunately.
I know we all sound like angry old men, you know, that they don't know that. But the thing is that there is a level of, you know, history to that. And there's a level of respect that I do think is missing, whether they want to say that it's lack of respect or not. You know, we all have our favorites, but and here's the funny thing. Those guys back then were legends, right? You know, they came up in the magazine era where Joe Weider made them into kind of like mystical creatures. Like, we still talk about like Mike Matarazzo. Mike Matarazzo, with everything considered, wasn't like a really winning pro, but we call him a legend. We got guys on the stage right now that would have smoked Mike Matarazzo, and they'll never be a legend. Why is that? You could send them a direct message on Instagram right now and have a conversation. They're a regular guy. They don't have that
Mystique
and that unapproachable, that superhumanness. And that ended, I'd say, right around the Jay Cutler era. You know, like I'd say the mid 2000s, even to 2010. And then I think that because the social media really became we came around bodybuilding, and we always talked about, like, you know, even bringing it back to Animal, like Animal created Frank McGrath, and, you know, we would never be able to do that nowadays because Frank's got a social media, and we know he's got how he really is, that he's a nice guy, and he would look like a nice guy in those photos, made him look that way. It was all set up, and we were able to do that. Honestly, the thing is if Frank was coming up now, it would be really hard to like put that all together. So that was just the perfect time and place. But yeah, I just think that I really hate that they missed that. But what are you going to do? You're going to run a seminar for all these kids and they don't care? I mean, they like C-Bum.
Yeah, they all know my nephew, casually into lifting, doesn't know anybody else, but he knows C-Bum.
The funny thing is that from what I heard years ago, remember when C-Bum was with Gymshark? He said everybody would approach him, the young kids would approach him, and they wouldn't ask anything about weightlifting or dieting. They would say, how do they get sponsored by Gymshark? And he said that was the number one question he hated.
Wow,
that's crazy.
He actually said, he goes, I don't even like Gymshark. He goes, they just pay me a lot of money. And that's how it is. And that's how businesses run. But it's like the kids, they just wanted the sponsorship. Now I think that the idea now is just going away from sponsorship because people are realizing they can make their money on their own, you know, with their own stuff, that they don't need some big contract to get like that. So I don't have like people chasing me down going, how do I get sponsored to Animal? Like, people honestly don't really care as much about that because they're probably running their own channel or, you know, trying to, you know, make money on like, you know, promo codes or something. If they could do it right, you can make a lot of money, but most people can't do it right or consistent.
There are some kids on TikTok making pretty big money on promo codes, man.
Yeah, you got to be the dude, and you have to know what you're doing. I'm not saying I am that guy, but you got to be a hustler with it, and you have to have a real dedicated following that, like, honestly, I don't want to use the word brainwash, but like anything you say, they're going to do. If I say you guys should buy this shirt, and then people like, that's influence, right?
There's a lot of kids like that on TikTok. These great loyal followings, man.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like the hard thing is like, what credentials do you have? And they don't have any.
But the followers don't really care. They don't question it.
And that's what baffles me is that I just don't like. I understand, like, okay, maybe if you had a crazy physique, okay, that's your credential. Maybe if you won 5 pro shows in a row, okay, there's credentials right there. But it's like, this guy isn't even lean. He's not big. If you walked in the gym, you'd probably walk right past him. But somehow he's got 20,000 comments on his post of him sumo deadlifting 375. And you're like, everybody could do this. It's not like we wouldn't even pull the camera out for that. We pull the camera out for 600, but it's like, you know, it's just a different time. And I always said I can't change it. Nobody can change it. Not one person can change it. So these are 2 options: either leave so you can keep your sanity, or deal with it.
Or jump in and do it.
I'm trying to get out.
Like, I'm out.
I'm out of here. I'll go to freaking professional bowling or something.
What is next for Gary Turner?
I was wondering.
Right now, I'm still like training like 6 days a week. And my wife's like, why are you at the gym so much? I said, listen, I go there. My workouts are very like, I am working out. I'm not training. I find a good way. This feels good. Let's hit this. Why do I do that? Because the more that I exercise, the more that I can, and still look good. I still want to look good.
Mhm.
And I have a very big appetite right now. So I can't be sedentary and then be eating 5 times as much as I was eating in prep. But I don't want to do that stupid reverse diet that these kids come out and they're eating like so minuscule.
Yeah.
So I go to the gym. Like I did back today. It was like 40 minutes. I found like 4 movements that felt good. And what would be my normal like warm-up sets, but they were a good contraction, good pump. I said, let's do 3 sets of this of 15. And it was just no thought process because I don't want to stress about anything. If I don't feel like doing glute bridges, I'm not doing glute bridges.
Right. It's got to be kind of refreshing to not have that pressure.
Very, very refreshing and very, here's the biggest difference from going into retirement or like even like last off season. I always knew that I had to keep it very lean in the off season. So the time after the show was so critical for me. And when my glutes started to like fade away a bit, I would be always like, oh, they're going away. I might be getting too fat. Let's bring it back. And before you know it, like a month after the show, I'm dieting again. So I always felt like I was dieting. Now I don't worry about my glutes. I don't have to take another picture of a rear lat spread and analyze how shredded my glutes are. Nobody will ever see glutes again. You know, so it's
never want to see your glutes again, Gary.
And that was just like, that's just the refreshing thing is I don't have to look a certain way ever again. Do I want to keep it together decently? Yeah, because I want, but like the most that I would have to look good is in a bathing suit at a pool. And you don't have to be a gigantic bodybuilder or shredded to the bone. You could just say, yeah, a guy looks really good. He probably was a bodybuilder, years ago or something. And that's the extent of it. And that is not hard to hold. So you don't have to there's no more like muscular development in the gym, so to speak. Like I don't have to like prioritize my glutes or prioritize my hamstrings. It's just rather like, dude, just burn some calories. I focus a lot on cardio right now. Every morning I do an hour.
Really?
I have an elliptical.
Cardio, man.
That's awesome.
I just listen to stuff. So, and what I do is I have a treadmill and an elliptical, and I'm going to get a stationary bike. I actually have a guy selling me a NordiTrack one for a good price. And if I don't feel like staying on the same machine, I'll rotate. But I got to get an hour, and my steps need to total 12,000 per day. So I keep the watch on. So whatever I can get in that cardio session, sometimes it's like, if I'm working from home and I woke up a little late, it might be only 45 minutes. And then I just got to do some more steps later in the evening. But it's
great for your health.
It's great for my health. It eventually helped me get my weight down because, eventually we're going to have to do a lot of that and like lower, protein and stuff like that to really get the muscle off, which I heard is very difficult to do. And then
is there an ideal weight that you want to be at some point?
I've been telling people 200 and everybody calls me freaking nuts. They're like, dude, I said, well, let me tell you something. I was 215 at weigh-ins for this show. So it's not outlandish that I've been there. Obviously, I had to try. Obviously, it went right back up. And I was 238 this morning, and that was down. The most that I weighed on the rebound was 247, but it was watery. Not trying to do that. If the weight goes down on the scale in the morning, I'm actually happy. So that's how that goes. But when I said even my retirement video, this muscle is least. And I have the self-awareness that I cannot be walking around 280 in retirement because that's what these guys are dropping dead from. It's the drug abuse, but you never see bantamweights die.
You're right.
Big dogs die younger. And, for the most part. So it's the body weight and it's the age. And you cannot be messing with that, going into later in age. And I know people are like, dude, you're only 35. All the Olympians are like, yeah, but I've been doing this for a long time. It's not like I started at 32 and I'm 35 now. I started taking gear at 19. So it's been a long time. I started competing at 22. So, you have to factor in your lifting age as opposed to just, your chronological age. So that's where I have the respect for all the guys that came before me, Matt Porter that didn't make it, John Meadows, and I'm not trying to get in line with that. And one thing that helped mentally, everybody's like, are you okay with this? I'm like, I'm very okay with it. Why am I very okay with it? Because turning pro, I have the self-awareness that there are guys in the pro ranks that can beat me from their off season, even if I'm at my best. And that means that's your ceiling. That's the end of the road. There's nothing left to do here. Even if you wanted to do something, it won't go well for you. You know, it's just like, it's like being a 5'8" player in the NBA. How well do you think this is going to, I don't care how much you practice. It's really probably not going to go well for you with 7-footers out there who have just better genetics. So I felt my genetics were good enough to get me to the level where I could squeak in a pro card win. But, you know, I'm treating that like my Olympia, but turning pro was the reason why this is so easy mentally on me. Because I'm getting better. My physique, you know, with Dominic, and we've unlocked new levels of conditioning. And I'm sure that if we had another season, I would look better if I could compete against amateurs. So you see what I'm saying? Like, if I was still amateur right now and I had to retire, that would be much harder than knowing that you have to go in the other thing. And everybody's like, well, you didn't want to do one pro show? I'm like, no, I'll be getting killed. And then for what? Say wave to my family after about $8,000 worth of stuff that I had to buy, and probably shorten my life a little bit, because I didn't go, I'm very open about it. I didn't go easy. I wasn't conservative. I was pretty heavy for a while, and I know that. So, you know, it's the self-awareness, and even releasing that. I mean, we talked about like respect and all this stuff. Like Dusty Hanshaw just quoted, he just shouted me out on his podcast with on Scott McNally and Ron Partlow, where they watched my video and they were like, that is so respectable that somebody could be so aware to be like, no, man, I'm out. I'm not going to get murdered on a pro stage and do that for nothing.
This is a very smart, mature decision. I'm very happy to hear it.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
You know, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, there was just things even at wrestling tournaments where I had my bag of food. Lucas wins the whole thing and I can't take him out for ice cream or to eat. And maybe at 25, that was worth it. And I've told my wife the whole prep, I said, it's not worth it anymore for me at this point. I'm not telling you if you're 25, you want to bodybuild, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
You know, they're in a different life circumstance. You do that. But when I was with my son at these things, and if I want to take him out on a Saturday after he won a whole damn tournament, God damn it, I want to do it. And I don't want to be stuck on just that one day. If the tournament's on Wednesday, I want to go out on Wednesday. Now I'm like, no, I'll take you out on Saturday when I get my cheat meal. The word cheat meal is an eating disorder word, whether we want to call it that or not. That is restrictive eating. That is a place in bodybuilding. But if you're not a competitive bodybuilder, you don't need to call things that. That's just real life. If you want to do a little bit extra cardio because you ate a little bit shittier, all right, whatever, fine, make up for it. But you got to be able to go back to being a normal person. That's what I kind of like. You know, my priorities shifted. Everybody would question me, like, I thought you were like Mr. Bodybuilding Passion. I'm like, I was, but I'm not going to also.
When you need it to be, right, Gary? That's
right.
That's what matters.
Dorian Yates said that too. He goes, I needed the muscle then.
Yeah.
I don't need the muscle now. I mean, he goes, I do yoga. You know, and Dorian's actually a very good role model for unloading that. You know, some of these guys that you see go down, you find out like after the fact that they were trying to make a comeback. I mean,
they're still hanging on, right?
They're hanging on. I don't want to make any assumptions, but I heard that Gustavo Bedell was trying to make a run back to the Masters Olympia, and he had one kidney. He was born with one kidney.
Wow.
So all the bodybuilding he did over the years, like he was walking a tightrope. I thought he looked pretty good beforehand, and I heard he got big. Sean Roden was 48, and he was walking around at 310 pounds. And it's like, I think it's the weight and these guys trying to make the comeback, you know. So the only guy I really worry about is Marcus Rule, because I heard he's still enormous.
Really?
And it's like, why? But a guy like Dennis Wolf is the perfect example.
Yeah,
Dennis Wolf he's lean.
Yep.
He don't look like he even lifts any weights. He might not. So, but Dennis understood like the mission that he doesn't need to, because he was huge back in the day.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's just, I think it's a mental part of it, but you got to get out of it. And like we talked before, sometimes there's no warnings. Sometimes you do get warnings, and you really need to pay attention to it. Because you don't
Dallas
get
McCarver had that. Remember, Dallas had one. That should have been the
bronchitis. They tried to say
that should have been the wake up call.
That should have been the retirement right there. The complete retirement. I mean, like, I know I'm not trying to sit on a high.
Yeah, but you know, when you're deep in it as the athlete, it's hard to think like that.
It's hard to how you play a video game and you can't get to the checkpoint and then you just turn the game off, you feel like a failure. But if you could just get to that checkpoint, you'll feel much better about it. Like that pro card for me was like the checkpoint. So get off the train now. Whereas like some of these guys, they don't feel like they've gotten to their checkpoint yet. And it's a really sickening thing. I put all this work in and now I'm going to go back because, you know, they're going to lose the mass or they're done, you know, and people always ask like, are you still going to stay big? And I'm like, no, I don't mind, you know, especially with getting involved in wrestling where nobody cares if you're big or not. So they care about how good of a wrestler you are. Or in my case, how good the best compliment I could get at a wrestling match is, hey man, your kid looks really good out there. I don't care. I wear a long sleeve t-shirt or a hoodie in the winter time. So you really don't know how big I am. And I don't want to be cornered and like told like, oh, I'm eating this, or dude, you're freaking huge or something like that. I want them to look at Lucas and be like, dude, this kid's a fucking animal. And that's, you know, that's how how I also justified, you're going to get lean. Your kid's going to tear kids up on the mat. And that's just how it is. You don't need to be the center of attention anymore.
Boy, has Gary grown up over the years.
Yeah, there you go.
Grown up.
Yeah.
Right in front of our own eyes.
Right.
Love it. Love to hear it. We only got a couple of minutes, fellas. So,
All right.
You guys got any other questions for Gary?
No, I was gonna say, I love how you're sharing that,
Sorry.
you know, experience and saying, hey, you know what? I know what I wanted to do. I did it. I am great with that and I'm gonna move on. And I think of how you're talking about it and comparing it to Flex Lewis, right? You know, definitely Flex Lewis is looking at Derek Slunsford, especially from a recent video, and saying, oh my God, that was gonna be me. I was gonna go into the open and I probably would tear it up. Definitely would have tore it up. And he just said, you know what? I got 7 Olympias. I've got a little bit of, you know, aches and pains. I know he went to Columbia for the stem cell therapy and all that, and probably just had a great talk with his family, his wife, and just said, you know, what do I got to do this for? You know, what else am I going to achieve? What's it going to, how am I going to, you know, pay for it later on in life? You know, and I really not just saying it because you're on here, but that's major kudos to you to have that governor in your mind to say, this is where I want to stop.
Yeah, and thank you. I never felt that I was ever going to get to that spot until probably like this year when I realized that I would, because I always felt like the guy that I was going to have to go to like therapy and stuff, like when I had to retire, you know, because I wasn't going to be able to deal with like being the big guy or something like that. And it was like, you know, once I started to get really in depth with the wrestling, I kind of like, it shifted like my mind, like to the point where, no, you'll be all right. You're just gonna go to a new chapter, and I started to focus more on that. Like I said in a few interviews, when I turned YouTube on, I'm not watching bodybuilding videos. I'm watching wrestling interviews and stuff like that to, you know, usually to recruit either ideas for coaching or mindset, or to show Lucas something like, look, see what he does here, and just with that sort of stuff, because it's more interesting. One thing I just feel that the wrestlers are mentally, and I still feel that sport is pure compared to it's less social media type than bodybuilding has become. Those guys are still going to freaking war on that freaking mat. They're still, you know, wrestlers are a little different. I think they were what bodybuilders were back in the day when I got into it, so like the old school. And I don't think that the current bodybuilding crop is like that. So that's where I kind of gravitated away from the current, you know, type of bodybuilder. And I got more into like what these guys are, where it's just like, dude, they're all still savages. And I kind of like found myself hanging around there. But yeah, it was easy to get out of it. You know, I'm not in a rush to offload any of the weight. Everyone's like, I thought you said you were going to get all the weight off. I said, well, I'm going to have to lower protein severely, which means I'm going to have to eat less. And I'm still very hungry because you're coming off that post show, you know, where you're still your appetite's through the roof. It'll calm down. So I don't really want to feel like I'm starving again, because I starved the whole prep. So that's why I haven't really like made the tear towards 200 yet, you know, and I'll get it down eventually.
Gradual, right?
Gradual. I'll get it down, you know, down. Of course, like the drugs come out. That's no longer.
Even though I DM'd Gary, I said, please don't lose all the hard-earned muscle.
Yeah, it's, you know, I have ideas that I want to maybe get into, and I want my wife to do it too, but maybe join a jujitsu class, because the reason why is it's not to compete. It has nothing to do with that. I don't have any interest in doing that. I want to try something where I'm a complete novice at, where I can go and learn and not be expected to be really good at it. Because for the longest time, I was at the top of the bodybuilding game, and I had my most fun bodybuilding when I was ignorant to all the facts that you can have. When you could walk through the food store and didn't have to look at the label on everything, knowing this is going to raise my glucose. You can't have this in the morning. You get too smart for your own
stuff
good.
takes all the fun out of it.
It was better when you just clanging and banging. You went to the dining hall at college and you just went straight to the gym for 4 hours. And now that that's not the right way, but it was better that way when you didn't know. So I wanted to try something where it's like, dude, we're going to teach you the first day basics and we don't expect anything out of you. You don't have to do anything further than that, and just try something new. And also the other thing I want to get competitively back into is I was a big time bowler in high school, and I want to maybe join a league to see if I can get it back. Actually, during prep, my wife, Lucas went to the bowling alley, and my first game, I shot a 221. I'm like, I still got it.
Wow.
There we are.
So I was like a 200 bowler in high school. I was on the team. I
You
walked out
remember
the pep rally with the freaking collar
This is
on.
going to be a hell of an animal photo shoot.
Gary got a nickname. Go back and watch the New Jersey Universal Road Trip. Boardwalk Gary Turner, because he was winning the games on the boardwalk in Wildwood.
Yeah. I won everything.
Yeah, he was killing it.
Eric, I forget, it was a water gun game.
He was killing it.
The hammer game with it, where you did the thing up, and Antoine was like, what the fuck?
Gary kept winning.
It was a great video.
It was so hot that week.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah,
that road trip was very
stressful.
stressful.
Bowling alley in the
agenda.
headquarters gym, right, Jay?
People in the comments are like, you guys are just feeding these guys shit, and then you expect them to go to the gym, and we had to show up at the gym.
That was, oh my god!
It was
Did he have like an eating contest or something, Gary? The grease trucks at Rutgers. Grease trucks.
Antoine threw up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Antoine threw up. Yeah. I was just on. Did you see Chris Tuttle called me in the middle of him, Antoine, Frank, and Juju?
One clip,
that.
But that's awesome.
I saw the clip.
I was sitting there, I got home from the gym, and I'm eating just quietly at my table, and I get Tuttle call, and I thought it was an error. I didn't pick it up because I didn't feel like talking. And then he calls back and he texts, he goes, you got to pick up. It's an emergency. I pick up and I look at FaceTime, and I'm on the freaking podcast. I'm like, oh,
wow.
God.
That's right on the spot.
It made me very happy that Frank shouted me out. He did message me that night. Because and that's everybody here remembers, I idolized those guys at the booth. There was nothing more that I wanted to be than was standing there and signing autographs all the time. Eric remembers when I remember one time one guy came up and said, hey, I don't mean to bother you. Can you sign my photo?
Yes.
And Eric goes, bother him. You just made his day.
He's been waiting all.
and I had to act like I was professional and did it all the time. So I had to keep a straight face. Eric's looking at me from the side, and I know he's trying to analyze what my face was. I did, keep a straight face, and I've done this before.
Yeah.
And so, but Frank did say, he was like, Gary stood by the cage and he watched us take pictures, and I said I really did, and I was up at 5 a.m. because I thought that was the way to get better, to get to that point, to be able to get that opportunity. Eventually I did get at the table and stuff like that, but it was just I did not I saw myself as an athlete. The company saw me as an employee, and in the beginning it was a rocky road of trying to balance it, because I was too much towards the athlete, or wanting to be towards too much of the athlete role. And then it balanced itself out, but it was cool that Frank, gave that props like that, because it meant a lot.
Awesome,
you see it from the beginning.
Yeah, it's great, man. Your whole story is great.
Yep,
very cool. Much respect.
It's just the persistence,
It's a lesson to be learned, man.
Watched enough Rocky and Rudy over the freaking years to burn it in my head. But
let me get him. He's here.
Oh, he got the cardboard cutout.
He's in the back. He's in the background. I'll put him on his side so you can see him.
Chris knows. I posed at the Lehigh to Hearts on Fire. You don't know how many DMs I got when I posted that video, because people are like, dude, I don't think anybody's ever posed. I'm like, this should be a very popular song to pose to.
Classic.
I used to have a saying that I used to post, that not enough kids are listening to Hearts on Fire in the gym, and it shows. Just thinking that they're going to run up a mountain. and it's just, that's what I grew up. And I show Lucas some of that stuff. I made Lucas watch Rudy already.
Awesome.
I stop
Wow.
every couple seconds to explain what the person was. And I would say, like, listen, everybody thinks he can't get in, but look, he's trying to study to get in, and to explain the themes of it. And he'll go back and rewatch it on his own when he's older. But like, I just wanted to like set up for him that people might say you stink, but you got to keep going type of thing. So
It's an awesome lesson and a great takeaway. It's great. I'm inspired by your story, man.
thank you.
Definitely. You're definitely the like fabric and DNA of Grit, Gary, especially with the brand and what you represent and just the posts. I love them. I don't just say I love it when you post it because I'm friendly with you. I truly believe in it. I enjoy reading them. Big
Yeah,
time.
those posts come from the heart. If anybody follows me or follows, Animal, I've had people say to me, hey, these sound like the Animal posts. I'm like, that's because I write them. And it's not,
Yeah.
it's not a character or something for Animal. It's just, that's just the way I am. So those two things cross over. And people say, how do you come up with those captions? I said, well, it's something on my mind at a time. And then I just kind of let the heart out on it. So, I happen to be pretty good with like wording. So, because I could take my time and write it down, that's different than speaking. But, that's how that all comes out is, usually me driving in silence. We all know those leg workouts where you drive home in silence, where you're like, that's when you get your best ideas, is when you're like exhausted, and, there's just been plenty of times I've been in that Animal gym on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock with one light, and you think of, like, it's almost like I set up an Animal set that you've seen in the posters, but I used to live my life that way. So it's like, that's it all lined up. You didn't have to be like an actor or something like that, putting on a charade.
Awesome.
What's the best way for everyone to get in touch with you, Gary? We're
Yeah.
talking about all motivation and everything. And I know I messed up probably your
You butchered it, Chris.
butchered it. Thank you.
It's on Instagram, _real_GSIX. And
No, I definitely did a fine job.
yeah, if anybody wants to message me, I'm always on there. I check all the DMs. So even that other box where that everybody forgets it, I'm in there too. So if you do message
love
me, I'm taking on clients now that I have some more time. Anybody wants to get
Awesome.
huge. It's my coaching is no nonsense, the same way that, I bodybuild. So if you're interested in that, shoot me a DM. And yeah, appreciate the support from everybody over the years. Everybody's had a nice word.
Yeah, you got to frame those Whitman photos, man. They did you justice.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
my wife, because you saw the video, that high quality video of my posing routine and stuff.
Oh,
That was
Amazing.
a different photographer. That's Gilco. His name's Mitch
Gilco is
Gilco.
awesome, man.
Guy's
And
unbelievable.
I knew he was going to be there. I knew Whitman. I've had the Whitman photos before, and they're not cheap. Trust me, they're not cheap. My wife goes, "You spent how much on this?" I said, "It's going to be the last time we need to get these things," and for good reason, because some of those cell phone, I don't know what it is with the freaking T-neck shows. You can't take your cell phone out.
No,
to take pictures.
they walked
I
through
got
the
in
crowd,
trouble.
man.
I
They were
got a
so
little
Really?
stuff with them.
Didn't know that.
And I knew that.
It sucks.
So
It kind of sucks.
I mean, we got some videos because like my buddies and my wife were fighting with them as they're getting the video, getting taken down as I'm getting announced pro. And I had one rule. If I knew that I was dead center and I knew going to the finals that it might be, you cannot miss that. You cannot miss that. And so what I did also is I purchased the live feed replay. It was $16 to rent for 3 days. And then I screenshot the video as I was on there. So I got this, I got it.
That's
Sorry,
great. That's a
sorry
good
guys. I spent 300 hours.
Well
to
worth it.
$300 to get
From T-neck now, that's the bad news. But
that Gilco footage is unbelievable.
yeah.
But yeah, that was like a conversation with my wife because I had to get that. I usually did get the Whitman photos. I just sometimes never liked the NPC photos. I never thought they did you justice sometimes, which honestly, these ones that came around, this was the first time that my rear shots on the NPC official photos where I was like, holy shit, I was shredded. Because you usually lose a little bit of the conditioning, especially from the rear in those professional photos. Like everybody looks soft and they're not really, in person, they were good. This was the first time where I saw them post after prejudge. I looked at Dom and I went, oh, I'm like, He goes, yeah, that's what it looks like in person. I'm like, he goes, you're fine. And so, yeah, that I was happy with the way those came out. So some of the photos you get, and you're like, okay, those aren't going up on the internet. Everybody's gonna think I suck. But yeah, it all worked out.
All right, fellas, we got to call it. That's time.
All right.
Gary's got to eat. He's got to do more cardio. He's going
More
back.
cardio now.
He's got to do his 5th cardio session of the day.
Yeah. Just in time for retirement, just do 1,000,000 hours of cardio.
It's an honor to have you. Again, it was an honor to watch you win. Witness the journey, of course, and again, this is a new journey now too. So we're looking forward to all those posts as well. So definitely on behalf of me, Jay, Eric, really want to thank you again, Gary, for coming on. We'll be posting this, I think, probably tomorrow morning.
Yeah, could upload it tomorrow.
So everyone definitely catch Gym Guys podcast. Again, this is episode 16 with the newest IFBB Pro, Gary Turner. Thanks again for being on, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having me.
Gary.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a good one.
You as well.